speaker series, and so it's an honor to be a part of that. In the last 15 years, Method, my business, has gone from a business that I started in a shared apartment with 4 friends of mine to the world's largest and fastest growing green cleaning company. And we've done that by putting circular economy and cradle-to-cradle principles at the core of our business model. What I want to talk about today is a couple of things. I want to talk firstly about why we exist and what we're trying to do to create those circular economy principles. And I'm going to share a little bit about our business model and how we innovate, and I'm going to contrast that with what's typical in the FMCG space for those of you that may not be in that industry. Talk about how that creates impact and we're going to talk about how we transform industry through a business model and finally how we scale. The best parts of these are the discussion. I'm going to try to keep my remarks on the relatively short side so that we have plenty of time for questions at the end. Rain, I'm having, oh, there we go. I was having a little trouble advancing the slide. So first of all, only about 4% of the global cleaning market is so-called green cleaners. What that means, to put it in perspective, is that for every green cleaner that's sold worldwide, Method or any other brand, there's 24 more that aren't called. They're the sort of typical, sometimes toxic, certainly less green alternatives, and made by some of the largest multinationals out there. This is proof that the biggest challenge that we face, I think, is mainstreaming green. And in order to do that, we create products that ordinary consumers love and challenge this orthodoxy of business as usual, which is based on the take, make, waste model of product creation, that linear model, based on the assumption that financial performance requires resource exploitation. I started Method with my co-founder, Eric Ryan, who's pictured here, to try to challenge the status quo of history and demonstrate that an enlightened approach to product design and corporate leadership can lead to business success, number one, and of course, happier and healthier consumers. We do this, of course, is by building our product development in around circular economy principles, so everything that we do is inherently sustainable. Constantly familiar with materials that infinitely cycle in technological or biological cycles, renewable energy, clean water, social fairness. And we believe much that these are practices that don't just create sustainable products, they create more innovative ones. And a lot of Method's approach comes from the philosophies of Eric and I, the two founders. A little bit about my background as a climate scientist, and really started Method because I thought that business would be a more effective way of creating positive change on a large scale than what I was doing in the public sector. And my co-founder, Eric, really comes from a branding and advertising background and helped us gain the insights that we needed to how we could make a product that happened to be more sustainably designed, really relevant to upstream audience. And so what started was really by looking at the category and what was the sea of sameness. You see even today a lot of the category looks very similar to the picture on this page. And what we noticed is this sort of sea of sameness was out of touch with cultural shifts that we were in the marketplace. The first, ironically, was that cleaning dirty, and what we clean with is sometimes dirtier than what we're cleaning up. It's sort of out of touch with the way that people's lives were changing. This again, go back in time about 15 years. There was we were in the infancy of rise of health and wellness, particularly within people's homes, and having toxic cleaners under your sink kind of was consistent with that. So the sort of lifestyling of the home. So people starting to take more care in how they curated the things and the experiences that they had in their home for a more domestic experience. And there's not really a brand that in cleaning space, which is one of the primary ways that we maintain, that really aligned with trends. And so we started the business the only way we knew how, which was making a bathtub and selling it door to door. Here's a picture of the first sale at a grocery store in Northern California. This was back in 2001 with a handwritten invoice book and a cobbled together product, which looked like this on shelf. So this was our very first shelf. And this product that was hand filled by us, delivered to the store in wine boxes with handwritten invoices, and we built the business from the store up to about 20, only direct store delivery using the borrowed car, which is pictured here, then doing crazy things like getting into growers and doing demos of fragrances and cleaning those, and all very much on a shoestring. We built the business a lot in the last 15 years, and now, as I mentioned before, our largest green cleaning company in the world, so the fastest growing clean company in the world, but still very much a fly on the wall of the industry and looking to scale even further. And of course, I'm skipping a few chapters, is that we experienced fast growth, I think in large part because we have made our products relevant to a mainstream audience. We've also been recognized as one of the most innovative companies in the world. Rain mentioned a couple of our more recent awards, and the most significant among those was actually that we won the Circular Economy Award for Entrepreneurial Businesses just the past January in Davos. So that was, of course, a tremendous honor and very much unexpected. The way that we have now coined our approach to business is what we call the method. We wrote a book about it back in 2011. And I'm going to take a couple of pieces from what I think are the most relevant parts to the circular economy audience for the rest of this talk. So, first, Method is a product company. We're not a marketing company. Most in the FMCG space are marketing focused, meaning they use their distribution scale to mass market commodities such that their product is preferred choice of consumers as a result of that reach and the frequency of their messaging. This, in fact, actually, the origin of the soap opera itself. The soap opera was a program that was created by soap manufacturers many decades ago to reach their target consumer with thinking about their product. And that's very in contrast with our approach, where at Method we believe that the product itself is our most powerful marketing vehicle. And so we invest disproportionately in product design to make the product more sustainable, more functional, and importantly, this is another example of how we've done a Disney partnership differently than you might have noticed out there if you have children who like Disney products and mindful of those aesthetics. Focus by traditional FMCG is what's really resulted in very narrowly conceived products that are based off of this disposable, non-renewable material, often toxic chemistry, which is designed to appeal to everyone. And we build cradle and circular economy principles in the very beginning of our design process, so that everything we do is inherently more sustainable, but that sustainability is just part of the broader quality of the product. And what is the circular concept of product which very much goes against the grain of the orthodoxy in the cleaning industry. And it's what drives a lot of our innovations. We currently have over 80 products cradle to cradle side. And really what that allows us to do is to create products that serve the needs of a narrower audience much better. I mean, for big litmus tests, there's products that are worth being talked about. And it really points to another way our business model differs from industry norm, which is that we focus on wallet share versus share. And we want, rather than selling one to everybody in America and Europe, really want to service a subsegment of the market and go deep with that consumer. And so we have a broad assortment of things that really after that consumer in a way that creates a really uncommon level of loyalty with the consumer. And it allows us to do things like bring simplicity of fun, what's scarce in home cleaning, fun, to chores, not just in our marketing, but in the relationships that we have with our advocates, who we call Peel Against Dirty. And so we have a relationship with folks where we sometimes use fragrances that, rather than lemon and pine, which are sort of the fragrances that nobody loves and nobody hates, cucumber or bamboo or something like that. And while those things can be polarizing to an individual consumer, over time, what it does is it allows us to create a much more meaningful relationship with consumers in a space heretofore has been very much a commodity space. We build our business process and our culture around product innovation rather than this marketing approach. And we really think that innovation starts very much with culture. This is the picture lobby in our San Francisco office where we get the entire company together Monday morning, first thing, to go through the current events that are happening within the business, which is one way that we measure culture. What we call wiki wall. So our approach is that we put everything up on the walls to keep work out in the open, so to be rapidly iterated on. People know the approach of design thinking, not dissimilar, but what we run in our business is integrated all of the actions that touch product experience and brought out. So, for example, we have our Create Studio in our offices in our stores, which is relatively totally unusual with FMCG space. And we also have the ability to do real-time chemistry, fragrance, packaging design, and all of that work goes up so that it can be evaluated, iterated upon, and made better. That requires a great deal of training in terms of making sure that everybody within the business has a yes and mindset, not a yes but mindset, and has the skills to be able to build ideas before we edit. We very think at Method that we in business are far too quick to edit ideas and spend enough time building ideas. Prototype everything. If you were to go into our offices in San Francisco, you would see a full-scale product realization lab in every component that touches the product, from graphic design to industrial to chemistry to fragrance and so forth. Do a lot of designing for ourselves. I mean, this seems like a very sort of simple and almost rudimentary kind of idea, but it's one of those where we get very quick checks on whether the direction that we're headed with a product design is a good one or not, and then it can go through the next level of iteration. And what this ultimately does is it produces speed. And in our business, that's really a competitive advantage that we enjoy, because traditional FMCG businesses take sometimes between 2 and 3 years to get a product from the product idea from the page to the market, and we do that in 9 months or less, which allows us to follow trends more and to be able to deliver successive innovations on top of the ones that we have currently in the marketplace. We've also done that in ways that have really that strong consumer relationship that we have. We've done, for example, a part where we have made a line of our products. We've packaged them using plastic collected from the North Pacific Gyre. And there's also examples where we've opportunistically done so as well. This Vote Daisy campaign here was a campaign that we did after we received a cease and desist letter from Clorox, one of the competitors in Northern California, who had trademarked the daisy for the use of green cleaning, not realizing that we had done it, trademarked it, but we were using the image of a daisy for many years just to connote the safety of our products, because as we learned, in a bottle of methanol purpose cleaner as long as it will in a glass of water. And this was one where Eric and I did a microsite, and we asked America to vote who should own the daisy, Clorox, Method, or Nature. And of course, that was a very successful way to kind of point out corporate bullying. But it really is kind of sticking your neck out there. But it's a way that I think that by reacting quickly, you can create some real advantage in the marketplace. And it's another way to build the authenticity of the brand, and that's something that in this era can be pretty uncomfortable. But if you're willing to just tell stories of who you are and sort of brand from the inside out, rather than trying to craft particular image that you can control near possible today, then there can be great benefits from that if you're willing to give up a little bit of that control and be radically transparent. So now I'm going to shift a little bit to how we create transformation in the marketplace, or how we try that. And I'm going to use the example of laundry detergent. We aim to make our competitors follow our innovations. That innovations have sort of a catalytic effect on industry, and the positive sustainability effects of the innovations that we create get multiplied as our competitors follow us. The household products business is very much a business of scale. This is where the companies with the most money and size control distribution, they control reach, and they control message. And as well, the categories are stagnant. They're stuck in old, wasteful, linear business models and product designs. Here, we're contrasting a product that we have on the market with what I call UV of the consumer products industry, which is jug. It's big, heavy, wasteful, but it's profitable for its makers. I believe that the speed can actually beat. So we've built our innovation model so we can rapidly innovate over and over again. And by being circular economy principles, we actually can hold our competitive legacy assets against them, force them to shift from a game of size and scale to a game of sustainable innovation and speed, which is one that we think we can win. And so I'll talk a little bit about laundry as an example of that. Back in 2003, actually, we first realized this sort of SUV of the consumer history problem with the laundry jug, and in particular that consumers were really dissatisfied with how and wasteful and messy it was. And so we kind of dug into it, and we discovered that, particularly in the U.S., but also in Europe, that laundry are basically just giant jugs that are filled with mostly water. And so at the time, in 2004, we launched a triple concentrated, so just simply doing the same loads of laundry with 1/3 the liquid concentration. It was a relatively simple idea, but a pretty bold move in the industry, because we displaced Tide in customers in the sort of prime real estate within the shelf. We we created a packaging format that greatly reduced the incidence of magnitude of overdosing, which is one of the big ways that traditional FMCG laundry manufacturers drive volume of their product. So they're holding this sort of weighty asset of overdosing against our competitors. What was about 16 months later, Unilever, which owned the All brand at the time, launched a very similar concept, a 3X concentrate with some very similar language, a very explicit green message. They also launched similar advertising. So in the left is an ad that we ran in 2004 and the right ran in late 2005. And the quote at the bottom of the page is pretty interesting, given what we'll see next, which is that a couple of years later, after retail involved and said, hey, we want this entire category to go to carbonated detergents in order to save shelf space and fuel and that sort of thing. You have the head of Unilever's marketing for U.S. Laundry saying that, I'm sorry, part of the quote didn't come through, but in the article it says that she is delighted that everyone has followed Unilever's lead in concentrated laundry detergents. Of course, then Walmart chimed in with a message that's asking if laundry detergent can save our planet through concentration and competition. And by May of 2008, they announced that Walmart sell only compact concentrated laundry detergents, and that would save 400 million gallons of water, 95 million pounds of plastic, 125 million pounds of board, etc. Which are very similar numbers to the numbers that we originally presented to Walmart, incidentally. But what's interesting about that is that in a short period of time, one of the largest and slowest moving consumer categories there is, laundry detergent, went from a big, heavy, wasteful format to a less heavy, less wasteful, more sustainable format with some big positive impacts because of the catalytic effect of one small company, Method, the catalytic effect that Method had on the industry by showing that by finding the consumer's interest with an easy-to-use product, with retailers' interest in shelf space, that we could actually create sort of a new, more sustainable equilibrium in the marketplace. One at it is, hey, we've gotten copied, and what do we do about that? Well, that's very much part of the Method model, and so for us, we saw that as an opportunity to and that's what we did. We shortly thereafter came out with an 8 concentrated laundry detergent, which is small enough that you can. It's about the size of a bottle of soap, and it contains enough detergent for 50 loads or what is about 2 months worth of laundry. So radically smaller and more concentrated than typical formats. That require an entire new chemistry, which I don't have a lot of any time to go into, but the laundry detergent liquid itself is structured in a sort of fundamentally different, almost opposite kind of way. It did also allow us to really amp up the storytelling behind the Great American Soap Overdose. So we actually got the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times to write in the same week about this sort of wastefulness of a detergent laundry approach. We were able to be more provocative in some marketing. We had a whole campaign. In those of you that are not U.S.-based, there's a U.S.-based anti-drug campaign, Say No Drugs, or Partnership for a Free America, and we played on that with sort of addiction to jugs. And it was something that earned us a lot of media into the media that we paid for, and amplified the effect of what we were doing. From a sustainability standpoint, there's really some savings with this product. For of laundry is about 300 loads. If you use our product plus the refills, we've created the refill in the laundry category, only possible with an 8X concentrate, given that a 5-load refill of a jewelry detergent would be too heavy to. And the savings with our approach are 2 orders of magnitude, as you can see here, in plastic, packaging carbon footprint, the water formula, the carbon footprint. These numbers are 2 orders of magnitude savings versus everything else that's out there in the marketplace. And really significant and noteworthy. But what I'd say is that the most important thing that we've done really drives transformation is that we laundry detergent easy one-handed. Something that drives mass adoption, and it's an example of we think about sustainable product design as an aspect of the quality of a product, not a way to market it. And us creating products that have benefits aside from the usability benefits is absolutely key to creating that mainstream adoption. The last section that I just want to touch on before we go to questions is how we scale and how we build the business to be able to kind of do this over and over again. And so for us, culture is really the key for that, and building a culture around how you continually, serially innovate in a company and how you connect that culture with the purpose that people have of trying to create a little bit of good in the world, even if you work for a soap business. So I talked a lot about prototyping. One of the things that we do with our culture is we actually prototype our people. And if you were to interview at Method and get far enough in the process, you get asked to do a homework assignment. And this is an assignment that has 3 questions, one strategic, one tactical, of course, about your role. And you're expected to think about this and formulate an approach and come and present that back to the people that you'd be working with at Method. The third question is always a very simple question, which is, how would you keep Method weird? And now, without going into too much detail, we've got 5 values at Method. One of those values is keep Method weird without individualism. Bring your to the workplace to contribute to a culture where we can continually do things that our competitors can't. And this meet has an amazing way of really helping to edit candidates down to the ones that aren't all of the same type. They're a very broad variety, but there are people that are willing to come into a business and expected to come into a business and contribute to the culture and innovation of the place rather than to take from it. And it's been a great way that we've avoided and gotten the right people to join our company. Another sort of interesting thing that we do, we don't have receptionists. Might seem like sort of a small thing, but 2 people every day and work the front desk at Method. And what it does is it reinforces the idea that every person is an ambassador within the business. And you got to sort the mail, and you got to answer the phones and welcome guests. But rather than sort of outsourcing that to an individual employee, we have each and every person, myself and every other person in the company, do this about once every 6 weeks that you do it. And it really has a way of, one, not just to the people that are coming into the office, but it's really self-reinforcing in participating in an aspect of the culture of the place, not just in the idea of product ideas. Those are 2 just very quick examples, but they're ideas about how we try to reinforce these values that we have. One other 5 values is what I ever do. And I won't explain who MacGyver is. Hopefully most of you know. He's sort of the ultimate resourceful person. And in a business that's challenging some of the largest multinationals in the world, resourcefulness is absolutely key. And is it a value? But we actually define what that means in terms of behaviors, bringing solutions, resourcefulness, can do, will do. These are we reinforce in the Monday huddles that happen in the front office. They're actually evaluating people's performance reviews, and they're the code by which we expect people to treat each other. And for us, this is going sort of one step in a way that is really far profound than we could have in just an office culture in San Francisco. We're now really at a defining moment for what we call, which is People Against Dirty. We're building the first LEED Platinum. So we've actually built the first LEED Platinum certified manufacturing facility in the entire FMCG industry, which is on the south side of Chicago. And it desperately needs green manufacturing jobs. It's powered by the wind and the sun. It has the largest rooftop greenhouse in America, growing leafy greens for a food desert area, habitat, water neutral, landfill free, and great connection with a community that sort of desperately needs it. And for us, it's allowed us to sort of extend our reach of this sort of culture of innovation, culture of individualism, beyond sort of the white collar world, if you will, to very much to the real world. I will end it there, and I think we've got maybe about 20 minutes for some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really insightful, and I think you have clearly demonstrated why Mid was a very worthy winner of the Entrepreneurial category at the Circulars this year. We've got various questions coming in, so please do keep typing them in. One that we can just sort of kick off with, Adam, is you've talked about how you sort of grow the business. So the question is, what allies that have sort of nurtured your success and enabled you to thrive? That can both be in terms of other businesses or engineers or policymakers. You know, what have been some of the allies that you've created to grow business?
Question. Thanks for asking. One real key, I think, to our success that I didn't mention is what we call related retail, which is just our way of talking about really trying to play a more consultative and strategic role for our customers. So one of our biggest allies has been Target stores in the U.S., and they're our largest customer. And we've got an level of support and representation at Target because we've really used a way to solve some of the problems that exist in the category. So if you can imagine yourself as a retailer that's selling cleaning products, generally you sell cleaning products because they're a trip driver or a frequency driver. In other words, when you're laundry detergent, you're going to go to the store, and when you go to the store, you're usually going to get some other things other than just laundry detergent. All of being a high frequency category, these categories are very low margin. They're dominated by the very large players in the industry, which have a lot of leverage over the retailers. And so there's very little, and they're highly promoted. So there's a margin in those categories for retailers. And so by bringing a premium proposition, Method is premium price, but only very slightly so. We're only about maybe US cents at max premium to other mainstream brands. But by doing that, we are able to create more margin in cases that are really struggling for that and play a role that's strategic for us. And so in that way, we kind of create strategic alliance, helped us grow. Another example of partnership that I didn't talk about that I think has really been that would be our B Corp certification or benefit corporate status. So B Corp at Method, we were founding B Corps actually, and incorporated as such in the state of Delaware. And the transparent audited reporting mechanism that comes along with certification has really allowed us to just sort of in real time validate social and environmental credibility by just being extremely transparent and open online through sort of an audited third party. And it's, of course, much more to do it that way than itself. And I would say the third and last example, of course, would be with Cradle to Cradle. We have 80 certified products, and there's no better way to validate the environmental performance of your product.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Adam. I think some of the questions we have are sort of grouped around a bit more of product design. So I think in your presentation, it's a really interesting example looking at the concentration of laundry liquid and the benefits of that being kind of reducing the overall size of the container. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about the sort of end of life of some of your products and what any sort of innovations in terms of disposable bottles and how you make those reusable and.
You at all about is the chemistry in the product, which is actually the most important way that we create happier inner home environments. We use a very exhaustive process for doing that material assessment, which is done by the Cradle to Cradle certifying agencies. And so, without going into the detail, there's a whole bunch in terms of irritancy and allergenicity and all that stuff that's sort of screened through stuff. The high level is that for us, we want to design every material in our products so they can go at end of life through a technical or biological cycle. So for the liquids in the bottles, that means biological cycle, because a wash liquid or dish soap goes down the drain and through a wastewater treatment plant ordinarily. And so you want that to be biodegradable, for example, and that's one of the ways that we will aim for the biological cycle, that not having toxicity, not having aquatic toxicity, and so forth. From a packaging standpoint, this is, I think, one of the more interesting areas, which is, the current category sells in plastic bottles, and we are bottles out of 100% post-consumer recycled material, so we don't use any virgin material. That's a well where the industry is, but certainly it's not perfect. One example I did not show is that we have created a very large refill business now. That comes in a sort of a pouch refill that's 6 times less plastic than buying a new sort of unit. And what I think is really significant about that is my belief in sustainable innovation is really, it's actually essential to get adoption in your product design. There's too many quote-unquote sustainable designs out there that don't help consumers adopt the new format, and so they're great academic examples, but they're actually happening at scale. And for us, in a simple example, like a greatly reduced packaging refill that creates a lot of scale behind it, creates benefits, but the most important thing it does is allows us to innovate again. So what we're doing now, which is up to this point and not something that you've been able to do with mainstream retailers, is we're now working on durable packages. Rather than having a plastic bottle that you refill lots of times, we can actually make it out of a more durable version, last much longer, and then just can only do the refill thing. Of course, you've got to pay with your business strategies to make sure that you're driving the right type of loyalty so that you stay within your brand. Very much something that's on our mind.
Great, Adam. So I think moving from the end-of-life product, one of the questions is to sort of look forward and to articulate more where do you see Method in 10 years from now? What do you want to focus on? What do you see as your next big innovation?
We've got a bunch of next big innovations that just say, keep your eyes peeled. I can't talk much about what's coming around the corner, but what I'd say is that my primary focus is how to innovate as far forward as you can, sustainability standpoint, while bringing the consumer along with you. And I'm a big believer that you can bring her along with you. Then you can do innovation successively, so that through a series of steps you actually reach the sort of max sustainable endpoint faster if you took a path where you tried to take more giant leaps. So, an example would be it's certainly possible to bring your bottle back to the store and refill it in the store. But the behavior change that's required from the consumer and the massive investment from retailers up to this point has made it so that's been really hard to justify that behavior, even though that would be a more sustainable behavior. Mm-hmm. And so we put the onus on us from a product design standpoint to basically create mass following, so migrate to progressively more innovative mats. And I think that just in terms, I think what happening already in the category is you're seeing a lot of purchasing to online, and that creates opportunity for innovation because you can get into much more mats that drive loyalty subscription models and so forth. So it's really all about how do we innovate as fast as we can while still bringing a mainstream audience with us.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you really did put a big focus on innovation, really, in your business model, and that's obviously helped to really forward some of the circular principles, but also the success of your business. What do you see as sort of role for policy in helping to shape some of that innovation, or does that really have to come from within the companies, or it can be done in the sort of policy space to promote innovation? Yeah,
it'd be nice if we had progressive policy. I think it would make businesses that on this is involved with more successful, and our world would be better as a result of it. One of the reasons I went back to business after my time at the Carnegie Institution is, even though I was deeply interested in the climate science that I was doing, and I worked on things like the Kyoto Protocol in 1997, and realized that despite the very best science and most good science, that the linkage between policy making and science was completely broken and politicized, and it made me realize that business, as the largest and most powerful institution on the planet, was a better vehicle for creating change. So I still believe that, but I still believe that policy would be great. But I'm absolutely convinced that policy follows business, not the other way around. And just sort of the plain fact of the matter that if you look at where the money in politics comes from, it comes from incumbents. And inherent in incumbency is the desire to maintain it. And I think that innovative businesses, more sustainable businesses, like the ones that are being run by the people on this webinar, need to win and to displace the incumbents, and then the policy will follow. And I
also sort of looking back on the of the business. I mean, it's something that stands out in in terms of a big challenge that you had to overcome and how you sort of approached that?
Yeah, do we?
Question to ask.
Do another hour?
Yeah.
I mean, there were times. I mean, let me say this. There were times. There was a time when we had $16 in the bank. We had $10 in payables, most of which were on personal credit cards of Eric's and I's. Credit hold from all of our vendors because we weren't paying our bills and we couldn't send any more product to our customers and stores. And it was only for closing rounds of financing that we were able to, run the ashes, if you will. There were times when we did a test market with Target where we had an innovative dish soap that dispensed from the bottom of the bottle, and it was so innovative that it confused consumers. And maybe that's innovative, but nonetheless, consumers were open at its shelf, and there was, biggest opportunity, which was a test market with one of the retailers in America, and we had dish soap dripping down an entire display in stores across the country, and sort of had to deal with that. There's a time which we write about in the Method book where right about the time of the financial crisis, we had overextended our business into too many business units, and we had to take a step back, which meant shrinking the business by 30%, 30% of our team, and sort of retrenching and starting over again. And so, as just to put the challenge in perspective, during the time I had to lay off one of the groomsmen in my wedding. Pretty the low point of my career. So, anybody who's been through a business like this, a lot of battle scars, and I'm no exception.
Yeah, really interesting. I'm conscious we're coming up to hours, so maybe just a question, maybe sort of building and talking a bit about you see the sort of sustainable business for consumer products. People in the UK and Europe more generally are probably more familiar with some of the products from Ecover. I know you sort of partner with now in the US. I mean, how do you see yourselves differentiating within the sustainable consumer products sector going forward?
I think there's sort of an immediate and an around the corner answer. I think that the battle now is innovation, experience, and sustainability. And the ways that we can win on both of those things. But what will happen, and what I hope will happen, is that sustainability just comes a given with products in the FMCG space. And sure, there will be differentiators between what's more sustainable versus less. Really, the battlefield to just what's more innovative, and sustainability will just have to be part of that innovation. That is our approach today. But what I think is right industry is I think our industry is ripe for disruption. I mean, if you think about around today and how that's been disrupted by things like Uber, for example. That has really happened in the cleaning space. I mean, we still generally get in cars and go to grocery stores and walk down aisles and get confused and put things in baskets and sort of drive back home, to get things like laundry, cleaning, and personal care products. And I just think that is going to change. And I think that the way we buy them and the way that we design those products to be more useful in people's lives is going to be massively disrupted. And a lot of where I spend my time is trying to figure out how and Ecover are going to be on the forefront of that disruption. And to me, it's really exciting because what it does is it allows us to really accelerate the move towards more sustainable, more innovative that business, but also have better environmental and social outcomes.
Well, thank you, Adam. That's been a fascinating both presentation and discussion of some challenges you've had and how you've really used education to come from that, and it's certainly inspirational for us. And certainly thank you for all the participants who have joined this afternoon. Also, just to highlight going forward that the next speaker in our series will be on the 6th of May, when we'll be welcoming Christian Lang, the CEO and founder of TradeShift. So that does bring us up to the hour. So I just wanted to extend both our thanks from the Circular Task Force, but also on behalf of all the participants for taking the time today. It is appreciated.
Thank you.